Whenever there seems to be false or inaccurate information in the Torah, we need to do our best to pay attention and to answer it, because obviously the Torah is perfect. In this week's Parsha, we have an example, because in Parshas Va'era, before the plague of blood, the Torah tells us that Moshe is 80 years old, which means necessarily that after the plague of the firstborn, Moshe would be 81 years old, because we know the plague of the firstborn happens in Nisan, and Moshe's birthday is in Adar. Yet, if it's true that Moshe is 81 after the plague of the firstborn, and the Jews are in the desert for 40 years, that would mean that Moshe dies at age 121, but at the end of the Torah, we are informed that Moshe Rabbeinu dies at age 120. So how can we reconcile this factual mathematical error? So I'd like to suggest a very simple approach to this question. The paragraph that discusses that Moshe is 80 years old when he and Aharon spoke to Paro is actually outlining an entire process whereby Moshe is going to go to Paro, Paro will refuse, Hashem will increase doing the miracles, which means that the paragraph is not meant to describe how old is Moshe when he first went to Paro. The paragraph is meant to express the process of speaking to Paro is a 10-plague long conversation, and therefore at the end, when the conversation is actually done, which is after the 9 plagues or the 10th plague as it would be, then it's considered that Moshe and Aaron spoke to Paro. Going to Paro once and speaking to him and informing about Hashem, etc., that's not the conversation. The conversation is a 10 conversation, so to speak, long process. Therefore, the Torah is giving us an incredible message. An example would be therapy. If a person goes to therapy for a serious problem 3 times, that's obviously not considered therapy. It takes a long time for a person to understand the problem that they are dealing with, what their internal mistakes or choices are that need to be looked at, etc. Therefore, the process of therapy is at least 10 or 20 or 30 times. But it's one long process. And really, underneath that critical message is the fact that Hashem is teaching us that the human experience is a process. We need to learn, but we need to take time to learn. And that's not so easy. And so just like Hashem was telling Moshe to give Paro a process, let Paro wrap his mind around the idea that he's not a God, and that there is a different God that is a one God, and that God exists, and that God gets involved, and that God has messages for the world called, hey, the Jewish people are meant to be the servants of Hashem, and the world needs to take notice, just like Hashem allows Paro to go through that process. Hashem also allowed the Jewish people to get ready for that redemption, that they should buy into becoming responsible to be the servants of Hashem. So too we today need to look at everything we experience as a process of education that Hashem is trying to help us get through. That's why Hashem doesn't immediately just take the Jews out right away from Egypt. And that's also why today we cannot look at October 7th as the focus. Part of a process of education. Hashem helped us to reacquire Eretz Yisrael in 1948. Hashem has been guiding us and helping us evolve incredibly as no other nation ever did before. But Hashem is also telling us that we Jews need to learn that we're in a process of self-development as a people. So whether that's making sure that more of our own people are educated in the true ways of the Torah, that they feel their sense of Jewish identity, or whether that's in the way that the country itself learns to organize governmentally, politically, and interpersonally with one another, it's part of a long process. So the question we need to ask ourselves today is, what is the goal of this process of the Jewish people? How can we use October 7th and so much of our history to help educate us to where we need to be today? What is our goal? And very simply, our goal, just like Hashem tells Moshe to tell Paro, is the Jewish people are meant to serve Hashem. We need to ask ourselves, what does Hashem want from me to do personally in my life to help my Jewish community and to help the world? That's the process that Hashem wants for all of us to go through, to make that choice, to be His servant, to serve His purpose, to help myself, to help my community, to help the Jewish people, and to help the world. So really the message of encouragement for all of us is we need to trust the fact that Hashem is taking us through a process. We need to define our goals, work on the goals, and then trust that the process is what Hashem wants and will therefore work. And if we can do that for ourselves in our own lives, then certainly we should be able to help other people go through a process. Don't have one conversation with someone and think, oh, well, I explained it to them, I told them what they need to do, they didn't do it, okay, I give up. That's not a process. Hashem is trusting us to go through a process, and Hashem is entrusting us to help other people go through a process as well.